As long as man has existed, there have been differently abled people. According to the population census of 2014, 12.4% are persons with disabilities. These persons are our neighbors and friends, capable of contributing to the community in countless ways. Over time, societies have created tools and mechanisms to assist them to fully realize their potential. But the road to leveling the playing field is not yet over. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic that saw the world come to a screeching halt, the disabled people were arguably in a more vulnerable position compared to the rest of the population. COVID-19 and some of the guidelines put in place by the government brought with it an atmosphere ripe for tragedy, as it has negatively impacted on the lives of people with disabilities in Uganda.
When the total lockdown came into place, persons with disabilities did not have opportunity to go to the markets, for example, to get food. So they were denied the right to food. They also didn't have a chance to travel to do their jobs, the many jobs that were always available in town. So their businesses again collapsed. So in other words, they lost the means of livelihood as persons with disabilities. And some of them are breadwinners at home. So that was another fundamental problem that the persons with disabilities faced. Of course, when you brought in the issue of masks as a government and the sanitizing, did not consider the third parties that the person with disabilities always have. They have personal guides and assistants who are supposed also to be well sanitized and protected. But there was limited information on disability inclusion within the COVID response. So usually you could find there are no sign language interpreters during the press briefings and all the communication around COVID in the initial beginning, and all these things affect the person with disabilities. But of course, it's important for the general public to note that the initial intervention was devoid of the voices and the concerns of persons with disabilities, and they were not consulted from the very foundations. So meaning the needs and the concerns of persons with disabilities were left in abeyance. And that was a very, very big fundamental problem that our people faced, because there was no proper prioritization during the planning of what would be the needs and the concerns of persons with disabilities during the COVID response. Even when the response came in place, strategies like COVID committees, persons with disabilities were not in the picture. So all these meant that their voices and their concerns were not being heard at the decision-making tables.
We caught up with some of the people who had a story to tell. In the northern district of Agago, Willis Oloya found himself at the wrong end of a bullet fired by a member of the local defense unit, LDUs as they're called, due to a misunderstanding stemming from the enforcement of the nationwide curfew.
It was at night. At night, it was raining. He was walking, coming home. So he saw some people coming by. He started running. They were talking, but he could not hear. So when he met them, he started running. They were moving, two of them. So he was shot when he started running away from them. He was coming from Adilang Center to the village here. So these were also coming from this side, so they met on the way. For him, he cannot listen, so he was just walking towards them. So the following day, police came in a vehicle. They picked him, they took him to the hospital. They amputated his leg later on. That, for him, he was not hearing. Hey, they were moving too. So for him, he realized something cold on his leg. So the only thing he had to fall down. Could be it was now a bullet. Yeah, he was shot. Later on, he fell down. He was not picking anything because now he's a deaf. He cannot know what happened. Then later on, he saw a team of people putting on uniform. He realized that he was already in the hospital being taken by a UPDF van.
It is quite unfortunate that the plight that befell Willis is not an isolated incident.
Another person was beaten by the escorts of the RDC in Kole.
Under similar circumstances, a deaf person by the names of Opio Ronald, and unfortunately, he did not survive. Today, we speak with his brother, who has been scarred by the incident.
Ronald Opio, and dek medwe mangwen. jobino upuodo. Ring upayo to chapar wia chiel dake apiera ngwen wia. Ringa me bang come to yeshu koje. Tenu ngatia bere payo. Ata penye ko ngo timi. Te ko ba ni jo moro puode. Ana ko ngo no ta timi ene. Ko ni no te bina. Pieno be bore te ko ba nia ete me tu chamo chapat. So kar mo ga ka chapat ere. Puodo mere chando no ko ma do petie. Er terin ka pa yudo ngo puode. Kar mo puode te bini diku. Diku mere to na ne jo puodo ronan. O tamania kito puodo kede ko tedo idahatal. Te ronan lo pi idahatal. Kar mo ter clinic mo te lo ni gifted an. So kar ter clinic kar mo te idahatal. Otonongo ronan lo pio ti kede peho me kore. Kar mo nuo ni ti kede peho me kore. O te wot office bojo NUDIPU lira. Te lungo dana chala mo te lungo ni Amza. Amza to be yele kede Amza. Amza te kone pe. Kita do jo puodo kede loni. Ko tem neno yore more way forward. Amza ge go yara disi me kole da chim. Pita moni kita mo puodo kede rona lo pio. Nyuara disi to atere da tal pena ko pe kono wano bero tin ki jiwa ma oda pe chene da petie. So kara me rona lo Amza ulu go yara disi chim e office kona. Ara disi ubi ye te bino na lira hotel. Same ngola da nutie. Te luongo ara disi ni. Pien rona lo pio po puodo keno. Puodo gin kira wote mo no jo te luongo ni kod jana. So da do wot kuna ye kar me wan wor kuna ya. De ra te ye te ko pe treatment pe hama pe treating loni. Te tu ni cha me te ko ne ko mi e cha bre che wan ger tu wot ye le ke le eto le no transfer me te gulo. No me oto ye gulo. Ara disi te bin kwero na en le to ni. Ye me yule konyor ke obino maho ara disino me kole took at the prison. So te here chalo ba witong te koboni nuiti handling kopere. Pero na chawa ni da wanam na gamor ke kenan do putpanu batane na ber reporter me an chao file me police timu ko ringo to batanda da ko biga ko tunu de chawa ni penjo NUDIPU wor na ibario wor ke di bario awi tong no tie. So under that amoni lawyer wa me NUDIPU gindo te timungo tido atishi ye ke medo ke da witong ko ringo pien kesu do nudo gupu medo ba wan gini da nudi did do law.
It took us even some time to have the perpetrators arraigned in court. And you know the perpetrator we are talking about is the RDC of Kole. So as I talk now, the family has not gotten any assistance. The family has not gotten any assistance from government. When we caused an arrest of the RDC, the DPP in its wisdom chose to charge him with the with the aggravated robbery. Actually, what happened is that this boy had gone to buy chapati for now the evening, so where he was got and alleged to have been breaking curfew regulation, that was already the time for curfew, so he was beaten and some money was taken from him. So from the time of the beating, the boy became sick and was hospitalized and eventually passed on. So we engaged them to, instead of charging him with the aggravated robbery only, we sought that they should add the charge of murder.
Many a times, these people are in vulnerable states, something that is sadly taken advantage of by some individuals. Here in Nwoya district, Katie, not her real name, who suffers from epilepsy and Down syndrome, was the target of an inhumane attack. We also spoke with the father as well to find out more about the unfortunate events that transpired.
no bom pe ma kara ma ba ye yo pe de ba ye yo kuno tika ba ri do gur mo dok tu pa ko man sha ko wa dugo wa dok ka ka na pe be ri da ke wa cher dak wa cha wa cho mo ma ti be kun do cha ba gen bo lo be lo sin na ka cher cha bo ngan mi di wo cha ga pe di kuno ba puta pe ko do ka cha du ga pe tung ka en mo ni ke yo anda yele do be na ma ka na ka watera akana na kun watera kana kuno a sia di ma kuno wa ni anam ya ye po lo ka kana wa an pa me po lo mo kan a wa kai kwera an ba kira kana wonu winye kai kwera winye ti dong a pe ka me ron dok gang bene ate winye me lo ngar ngar kirina a ke wa ji ne wa du ki kor a sia ngwan wan mo lo ka an lo ka du chen kan a shao dok kuno en sia ngwan ino wan ki jeuge sharo chung kwe akan peke wa gen wa or la dam ge chi me don ko pruchi shar penyo ko ki wa ji kun akan pa bo ni god bera kan peke wa shao lo wa du kan pete ko no me ki gonye ne be wa ino nen na yele ko en ko be ti kan wor kan be kan an ke an puda to mo puri mana amera kan ka kore go en no ti ma ti me we lingo a pe be en me ko me na en pak en ti ki tuo ba ko no nyal kir ma gwa ten me we ti mo lingo pe ta ga tu bolo pe be gwa kya ke tu rom bolo wala ten ka mo ken ma ka rom te en ko no ba nim ka mo no ti ki la ten ke rom gwa no ye no rom te en wan ni be ko cha nim ti ka go to me la kir mana si ana ra no gwa ne pi an pole pa ma be gang ma be en bu an pole ya wa ma ka ka wi je ma cha ma mi obra cha mo ne si ayele ko eba lo ko ka ti be putu chung an not a twa lung lo ka dum boto don ka ro twa len wan en anim wa ngo wa do ke do chen pe daw ke ko yo ke en ka nen ma lu en ka na no ak chek do ya ka ro ko ni ku adwan en pe ka pe ye
akana anandonga data very way po kakana charkeni chabisial meduvo kakana charkeni chabisial meduvo anakana chawacho na bana wa ne bin gam an ke anna bata kwane ko cha kwan do cha go ke an ko cha ko tingo an ke pepe cha per nyar an ko yo me pate mo ke ki ma cha benu ya bu wa tata man ma bin kanya cha ma en police ata en wa na ki kana da ka ma police me na da cha ka en da ho du da cha ke ma da ko tar da ko wa gu Kiglo o a don jar ma hodak dan kan ke gana.
A significant portion of the disabled population lives on a hand-to-mouth basis. The epidemic, among other things, highlighted the need to have better monetary strategies in place. We are here at Mukalakamba Tiro to meet up with the members of Muwanguzi NUDIPU Savings Group. The group is making efforts to help members secure financial security and empower them to live a life of self-sustenance.
Kakati tu saving asiri omugabo gwa siringi 10,000 ne tubanga tu saving emigabo 5 era tutandika tutereka buli lwa kusatu ne tubanga tutereka emirundi 4 mu mwezi etusobola okutereka bwe tube tukola era tugabana oluvanyuma lw'omwaka twatandika nga 6 2019 olwaleero nga 6 2020 tusobodde okumalirizaako omwaka gwaffe ate era ne tutandikirawo okutereka n'okwewola kitegeeza tutandise omwaka gwaffe ogwokubiri. Abantu ayingira mu kibiina tusooka kugiwa omuntu aliko obulemu. Chance ey'okubiri ey'okuba nti olina gw'olabirira ng'aliko obulemu gw'osobola okumukiikirira nga mu kibiina muno. Awo naawe okkirizibwa okubeera nti osobola okujja wabula olina okuba nga otuukiriza amateeka g'ekibiina nga bwe tugakulambikidde gonna. Bw'oba tosobola oli wa ddembe okubeera nti toyingira kibiina kyaffe.
Saving group ennyambye kati nganze omuntu omu kubanga bwe twaddamu awo okusavinga obulungi nasobola okwewolayo akasente nengulayo material nentandika kuba nawulira nti okusoma kunaatera okuddamu nentandika okukolayoko ebitabo. Amagezi gensooka okuwa bali mu saving groups kwe kubeera nga babeera batetenkanya nnyo, okubeera nga tetutunuulira kale mulimu gumu kubanga osobola okwesiba ku mulimu gumu no failinga kakati n'obanga kati nganze kye natuukako nti nali ntunuulidde ebyo byokka ate nekijja nekizikira naye ng'ate obeera olina ewalala osobola okujja akasente osigala ogenda mu maaso.
NUDIPU eno kyendabyemu kyennyambyemu mbadde sobola kutereka ssente ezo nti oba nterekeyo $20,000 omwaka mbere nga nzinaawo nti ziizino naye NUDIPU eno kyennyambye otereka ssente ezo omwaka guggwako oba nfunyeyo 15 gyange nembeera nga nzifunye wamu era nensobola okwewolako nengenda mu ddwaliro kati bwe mba nga ntunze akantu kange kembeera nnimye nensobola okukola ki okuzijjayo nga mmaze ate okukola ki okwejjanjaba.
Since the outbreak of COVID-19 in March, this pandemic has brought a lot of issues to the community, of which the person with disabilities are part of the community. It has brought a lot of hatred. People hated themselves, a lot of conflict, and above all, at the end of it all, we have tried to bring people together to say, please, don't blackmail anybody. Don't stigma. This issue of stigma should not be there because everybody is vulnerable, and therefore we have asked the community to stay together with the person with disabilities without discrimination, and people have learnt about that, and they have tried to work together and even staying together as one people.
COVID-19 has also impacted on people with disabilities having failed to access full information. Full information in terms of communication tools. They have not got enough communication tools. Why? Looking at people in Agago, especially people who are disabled, have not had good tools. For instance, impairment tools, speaking tools, eye usage tools for those who are blind, even those with, who are deaf. They have not got these tools, not because we don't have, but also from the center. This is something like a gap which has affected them.
There are people who are supposed to be supported as they move, especially the blind. So the people who are supporting them could not leave these people alone and to move on their own. They have to support them. So which means if I'm supporting a blind person, then I must observe SOPs, and a blind person also must observe the SOPs. But you find that some of the people supporting them are not constant. Today is another person, tomorrow is another person. Exposing people with a disability of that kind into risk of infection.
This pandemic has changed the lives of persons with disability. Socially, it has affected greatly the social aspect. For example, we used to move to the community, take a walk, chatting with the members. But now, since this pandemic has come, people now are idle at home.
We have, first of all, encouraged them to be close to the task force team. We have included them in our meetings. We have always consulted them. And we have actually emphasis on radio talk show has been that the person with disabilities must equally be treated as Ugandans, as human beings, and everything must be inclusive, not exclusive.
One of the issues I've done was to have engagement meetings with the National Task Force to discuss disability issues. The other engagement, of course, I've had the development partner supporting the issue of awareness creation about disability and COVID. A number of radio and sport messages have been running across the country, sharing information and experiences on how persons with disabilities can also protect themselves from COVID response. We've also been able to actually distribute food to the extremely vulnerable people in the Mvuma Islands, where our team from NUDIPU went and distributed the food for that kind of people. We have also been able to ensure that we advocate for standard operating procedures around the disability. And the Ministry of Gender, working with partners, came up with standard operating procedure on how to deal with disability issues during COVID response.
People with disabilities, it has been the fact that they are inclusive in our plans. But looking at the needs or the resources available, it has not been fully distributed to reach them on the ground, because most of these resources which come are specific to COVID-19 patients. And looking at the COVID-19 patients, less or no number has been registered high of people with disabilities affected with COVID.
There were only 3 areas of accessing information. One was through the radio station. And through the radio stations, not all people listen to the radio. You could be able, you could not be having the hearing impairment, but you don't have time. You don't have time to listen to all the radio stations where the information was being spread. 2, the information was also moving through the TV station. How many people have TVs at home? As PWDs, we are so vulnerable that we can't access both the radio and then the TV. So that is another format of information sharing. Then another format of information sharing was through the posters, printers that the government sent to different sectors. We are not learned. We are unable to read and write. Then all this information government is sending, it is in English, not even in the local language. Not even in the local language. So, which means there were gaps in sending the information to PWDs.
We received learning materials from the Ministry of Education and Sports, but as a task force and as a district, we realized that in these learning materials, there was no, because I look at a person maybe who's blind. No, a person who's blind, the learning materials could not really cater for that category of people. Could not cater for that category of people. So I believe that maybe the ministry would have gone an extra effort in ensuring that the people with disabilities are also catered for.
Government should also make sure that the way everybody is being treated, they should also be treated and be supported. We still need to bring them on board in our planning. In the fight against COVID, they must be included in the planning. If there is any budgetary area of components, they must be taken care of. And they should also be consulted how things should be handled in the fight against COVID. In summary, they should be included in all planning, in all mobilization, in all activities, and in sensitization of the population. A person with disability, all should be included. They should not be left out.
When COVID-19 came, my office rushed very fast to go and sensitize, to go and talk to this disability at the Disability Union office. I showed them how we could now have social distancing. I introduced the SOPs to them, told them what to do, and the good thing, we had some interpreters, sign language interpreters that could interpret to those who could not hear, those who could not speak. And as well, the blind could see, but we talk about how best they can be protected. And we said we needed people who are going to be designed to guide the blind, not changing one to another.
We are traumatized by the action of our family members because of the disability, the nature of disability we have. And again later, COVID-19 has traumatized us most. So first of all, government must establish a rehabilitation centers, either regionally or in all the districts.
I also advise NUDIPU to continue lobbying for the district to have a school for special needs.
We need the special budgets, but we know we have so many competing demands, especially when we are budgeting, when we are planning. We cannot do all that is needed to cater for the needs of the people generally. But as I said, this is the special group, and these are our brothers and sisters. Today, maybe I'm not impaired in any way, but tomorrow, especially infirmity always comes in with the accidents. Anytime, even if you are energetic enough, tomorrow or even today, one can get up, ending up injured, and you join the other group. So we are potential candidates to that group. So government, non-governmental organizations, and well-wishers should always look at helping this group of people.
We definitely now recommend that government should proactively engage with the organization of persons with disabilities and their leaders to have a discussion on how persons with disabilities should be systematically included in the COVID response in Uganda.